Good morning, I'm Elton Robinson with your October 30th grain and oilseed update. This week's headlines: heavy rains hit the Mid-South and Southeast this week, but harvest is moving along. And soybean exports achieve a marketing year high for the second week in a row. About 3/4 of the U.S. corn crop has been harvested for the week ending October 25th, which is a little ahead of last year's pace. The Mid-South and Southeast crops are about wrapped up, although there have been rain delays. 71% of the grain sorghum crop is harvested, which is 10% above last year at this time. Soybean harvest is also ahead of schedule, with almost 90% of the crop harvested. Peanut harvest is about 60% complete, which is a little behind last year's pace. About 83% of the U.S. winter wheat crop has been planted, which is on pace with most years. In the South, planting progress ranges from 20% complete in North Carolina to 40% complete in Arkansas. About 62% of the crop is emerged, which is about on pace with last year. Let's take a closer look around the country at harvest progress, beginning with South Carolina, which is still recovering from the aftermath of Hurricane Joaquin. There are reports of sprouting in pre-harvest grain sorghum, but the most severe damage is expected in cotton and peanuts. Damage has been assessed in excess of $300 million. According to Hilda Shelley, extension agent for Horry County in South Carolina, soybean and peanut harvest is underway, and due to the excess moisture, the yield and quality is expected to be substandard at best. Grazing and hay production suffered significant damage in low-lying areas due to the flooding. More rain swept through the entire southern U.S. this week, and the effect largely depended on whatever field activity was taking place and soil moisture needs at that time. Let's move to the latest export figures for the week ending October 22nd. Wheat exports of 320,000 metric tons were up 51% from the previous week, but down 26% from the prior 4-week average, with South Korea and the Philippines as primary destinations. Corn exports of 433,000 metric tons were up 6% from the previous week, but down 25% from the prior 4-week average. Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Japan were the biggest customers. Grain sorghum exports of 162,000 metric tons were slowed considerably last week. That's down 38% from the previous week and 44% from the prior 4-week average. Once again, though, China was the biggest customer, with Mexico a distant second. Rice exports of 78,000 metric tons were up 29% from the previous week and 19% from the prior 4-week average, with Iran, Haiti, Japan, Mexico, and Canada as destinations. Weekly soybean exports of 2.8 million metric tons was a second straight marketing year high. That was up 25% from the previous week and up noticeably from the prior 4-week average. China alone gobbled up 1.7 million metric tons. Soybean meal exports of 329,000 metric tons went primarily to Mexico, the Philippines, Thailand, the Dominican Republic, and Portugal. Soybean oil exports of 15,000 metric tons went primarily to Mexico and the Dominican Republic. Beef exports of 12,300 metric tons were unchanged from the previous week, but up 6% from the prior 4-week average. Primary destinations were Japan, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Mexico. Pork exports, meanwhile, were of nearly 20,000 metric tons were up 12% from the previous week and 13% from the prior 4-week average, with Mexico, Japan, and China as primary customers. Well, that's it for this week's report. I'm Elton Robinson. See you next week.